Hello, this is Alfred Brock, and we're going to be talking about water quality. Specifically, I'll be reading out of the Watershed Wisdom for Homeowners, which includes some healthy habits for clean water. And this was produced by the Alliance of Rouge Communities, allianceofrougecommunities.com, and you can learn about them separately. We're really going to focus now on the types of water that we use in our communities, that we have in our communities. We're going to touch on stormwater, groundwater, and wastewater. But first, let's talk about a watershed. Now, here in southeastern Michigan, we live in the Rouge River watershed, and it's very big. It's very big. River is actually three rivers, the upper, middle, and lower, and they run on through to the Detroit River, and the Huron River is through here also. So there's a lot of water flowing through this area, and we're going to be talking about it. So let's find out. So we all live in a watershed, and this could be the same in your area, depending on what watershed you're in. That's an area. What is a watershed? Well, it's an area of land that drains to a common water body, such as a lake, a river, or a stream, or even down into groundwater. The movement of pollutants, now we're going to start talking about pollutants. We're going to skip right to that. The movement of pollutants in a watershed travel from upstream to downstream areas, or at the junction between groundwater and surface water. And what that means is that the groundwater and the surface water mix and can pollute each other. Understanding the watershed concept is important because it allows us to understand that we have an impact on water quality far beyond our back door. As more and more land becomes altered or developed, and in this area, that's an ongoing process, the amount of stormwater runoff in the watershed increases, and how that happens is when things get paved, there's no way for the water to percolate into the soil and move along slowly and naturally through the courses that it normally would. It hits that pavement and goes right into the gutters and right into the pipes and right into the watershed area, the commonly collected area, like a river, a lake, or a stream. The potential amount of pollutants that are contained in that runoff increase a great deal, and you could learn a little bit more about that by taking a look at more watershed information, but we're going to skip that right now. So by practicing healthy habits, now we're going to skip into what you could do. Practicing healthy habits for clean water in and around your home is especially important because you can have an effect on water quality, and that is a fact. The Rouge River watershed, and all of the watersheds, is home to more, well, this particular one is home to more than 1 million people, and takes in 466 square miles. And it runs through the most densely populated and urbanized land area in southeast Michigan, which is one of the most densely populated and urbanized areas in the United States. Now, the Rouge River is a tributary to the Detroit River, and its four branches total approximately 126 miles of waterways and include over 400 lakes, impoundments, and ponds. And more than 50 miles of the river flows through public parklands, making the Rouge River one of the most publicly accessible rivers in the country, which is good and bad. It's good because we can get down to the river. It's not so good because some portions of it are extremely polluted, and you can go down and look at it, but you really shouldn't touch the water or go into the water. It's not a good idea. Just to give you an idea of what's going on around here, in Ypsilanti, there's a sewage treatment plant, and after they treat the water, they release it into the Lower Rouge River channel. And what this does, they like to say this is a good thing. During the normally dry seasons, when this would dry out and the river becomes a stream or a creek or a trickle, and most of it flows underground, it still maintains a flow of water, but it's all from the treatment plant. So 365 days a year now there's water there, but for like 4 or 5 months of the year, it's primarily treated water. So let's see, what is stormwater anyway? What is it? Let's find out. Now, when it rains or the snow and ice melts, the water drains off streets, driveways, rooftops, and lawns into lakes and rivers without treatment. There it goes. We just talked about that. Gets on the pavement, right into the street gutters, right into the pipes, and right on down, because they take it right down to the water. That's from a long time ago, and that hasn't been much change. Sometimes there's impoundment ponds, but still everything goes off the roadways, off the paved areas, rooftops, and all sorts of things into the pipes and right out to the waterways. Now, as it travels across this industrialized landscape, it picks up pollutants like bacteria, oils, nutrients, fertilizers, and sediments, and a lot of other things. A lot of this plant poisons, insect poisons, all of these things. Now these impervious surfaces such as pavement speed up the flow of the runoff from the landscape and prevent water from soaking into the ground where it can be naturally cleansed by microorganisms that live in the soil, and also support the structure of the soil. The soil begins to dry out because it doesn't get any new water there to be a cohesive part of it. Now, many pollutants also reach the waterways from soil erosion because many chemicals readily attach themselves to soil particles, and it's easier for that to happen when the liquid chemical waste comes in contact with the dry soil, and now it's picked it up. Now the water comes along and everything is on its way down. Contaminated runoff, known as non-point source pollution. How about that for a word? You want to talk about it? It's the contaminated runoff. They also call it non-point source pollution. The contaminated runoff comes from many different sources, and it's difficult to trace back to one source on the landscape. That's what they're saying here, but I don't particularly agree with that. So contaminated runoff flows without treatment into the nearest stormwater drainage system, and we already know what happens next, right? It goes into the stormwater drainage system, into the pipes, and right down to the waterways. This may consist of simple drainage ditches or infrastructure such as enclosed pipes, outfalls, catch basins, and detention ponds. If you live on a river, lake, or stream, this runoff travels into the water much more quickly. It just goes right down and in. Especially from roadways that follow along the side of a river, and all those parking lots and all those apartment houses and buildings. Now let's talk about groundwater. This is down below. Now groundwater is water that's stored underground in the spaces between soil particles and fractured rocks. It's the water that's in the ground. When you go dig a well and you get it out, you're taking groundwater out. And the groundwater is either stationary, like in some of the large western reservoirs. There's entire amounts equivalent to gigantic lakes and small seas out west. When you pull that out, it's coming out. Around here in this area, if you pull the groundwater up, other water tends to take its place slowly. Groundwater is the source of drinking water for many suburban and rural households throughout Michigan, throughout the United States, and all around the world. When you dig a well, the people are going for groundwater, and that's what they get out of it. Now, groundwater resources, that's the amount of groundwater that's in the ground, and I mentioned that out in the west, there's an enormous amount of it, equivalent to large lakes and small seas. When you take it out, they don't get any back, or very little, or it takes thousands of years for it to replenish itself. Around here, it kind of goes pretty good, but if there's a lot of runoff and it goes away quickly from the surface, it doesn't get a time to get down in the groundwater and retake its place. Now, groundwater resources can be impacted if toxins, that's poisons, in runoff leach through the soil, and that's going to happen, as we know, if it's shooting across the surface of the ground and then it leaves, there we see some stuff dry there on the surface, and water comes again and pushes it down. Now the groundwater there is polluted, and when the groundwater starts to move, there goes the pollution. It's moving it right along. Contaminants can pass through surface water and into groundwater because these systems are interconnected, obviously, but sometimes the folks that are in charges are make it a little more difficult than we really need. Okay, so let's have the rain come out of the sky. Here's where rain's coming out of the sky and it falls on the ground. There it is. Now it's surface water, right? If you leave it there, it's gonna sink into the ground. It's gonna go into the ground. It's gonna become groundwater. Okay, that's the connection. It's one source. It's one group of water. Pollutants can impact water quality by harming fish and wildlife, impairing recreation, including fishing, boating, and swimming, and contaminating drinking water supplies, which are often taken from groundwater. So then, finally, let's take a look at wastewater. What is wastewater, right? So wastewater is water that's been used in toilets, sinks, and showers in a home, business, or as part of an industrial process. And let's take a look at that for a minute. Say if they're using it in an industrial process, maybe it gets polluted with heavy metals, and they're told to put it out in a detention area, a detention pond, where it sits and settles, and now there's an increase of the metals in that area. If there's additional rain and it overflows, that stuff is going to go along the surface, down into the drains, and as for where it's sitting in that detention pond, even if it's lined, eventually that material is going to work its way down into the soil, into the groundwater, and then get transported hither and thither and on. So It can also, so in a business or it's a part of an industrial process, water, wastewater. Used in toilets, sinks, showers, and home business as part of an industrial process. Wastewater flows through pipes to a wastewater treatment plant where it is treated before it is released back to the environment. That's right. Materials from industrial locations as well as from your home and your dishwashing liquid go to essentially the same place. And they are not quite able to deal with everything that's there. They do what they can. It can also be treated in an on-site septic system located on the property. And in Wayne County, in this area, there are about 20,000 houses in the Rouge River watershed that do have a septic system. So there are different ways to prevent non-point source pollution. That's contamination from getting into the water, whether it's surface water or groundwater. And we're going to talk about that in the future. But right now we were just talking about water in general, water in general, the watershed wisdom for homeowners, for everybody really. If you've rented an apartment, if you're living here, if you're passing through, if you're visiting, I'm so glad you're here. Have a nice time. The water system is the same wherever you are for watersheds. Okay, thanks for listening.